I was the queen of Chicago's underworld, until my empire crumbled in a single night. My name is Sofia Marconi, and I've spent my life weaving stories from the shadows' tales of grit, betrayal, and the kind of power that burns your soul to ash. The first time I held a gun, my hands trembled like a leaf in a storm. It was 1922, and Chicago was a city of wolves, each one hungrier than the last. I was 22, a seamstress's daughter from Little Italy, with no business in the world of bootleggers and mobsters. But hunger has a way of rewriting your story. My father had been gunned down by Al Capone's men for refusing to pay protection money, and my mother followed him to the grave, her heart too broken to keep beating. Left with nothing but a rented room and a burning need for vengeance, I found myself at the doorstep of the outfit, the very machine that had chewed up my family. The air in the back room of Rossi's speakeasy was thick with cigar smoke and the sharp tang of whiskey. I stood before Vincenzo, Vinny Moretti, a mid-level capo with eyes like a snake's, cold and unblinking. "You're a girl," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "What's a girl gonna do for us?" I didn't flinch. "I can do what your men can't," I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "I can slip into places they'd never dare, society parties, police stations, even Capone's own clubs. No one suspects a woman." Vinny laughed, a sound like gravel crunching underfoot, but I saw the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. He handed me a job. Deliver a package to a politician's mistress at a gala on Lakeshore Drive. No questions, no mistakes. I wore a borrowed silk dress, my dark hair pinned up like some debutante, and walked into that glittering ballroom with a derringer strapped to my thigh. The package likely cash or blackmail changed hands in a flutter of champagne flutes and fake smiles. I was invisible, just another pretty face in a sea of wealth. That night, I earned Vinny's respect and a new name, the Sparrow. By 1924, I was no longer just a courier. I'd clawed my way up, proving I could outsmart cops, rival gangs, and even my own allies. The outfit was a man's world, but I carved out my own corner. I ran a network of women waitresses, dancers, even nuns who passed me secrets from every corner of Chicago. They called us the Mob Queens, a name whispered with equal parts fear and awe. My girls were my eyes and ears, slipping through the cracks of a city that never saw them coming. I operated out of a dress shop on Michigan Avenue, a front that hid our real work. The back room was a war room, maps pinned to the walls, crates of illegal liquor stacked beside bolts of fabric. My right-hand woman, Clara, was a former pickpocket with a laugh like a hyena and a mind sharper than a razor. She'd been with me since the beginning, when we'd stolen a shipment of Canadian whiskey right from under Capone's nose. "You're gonna get us killed, Sofia," she'd said, grinning as we sped away in a stolen Ford. But damn, what a way to go. Our biggest coup came in the summer of 24. Capone's men were bleeding the North Side dry, shaking down every bar and brothel. I saw an opportunity. Using my girls, I spread rumors that Capone was skimming from his own bosses. The whispers reached the right ears, and soon his lieutenants were at each other's throats, fighting over who was loyal. While they tore themselves apart, we moved in, taking over 3 speakeasies and a smuggling route along the lake. I didn't fire a single shot, but I'd drawn blood all the same. Power is a drug, and I was addicted. By 1925, I was running half of Chicago's South Side, my name spoken in the same breath as Capone's. But every crown comes with a price. I'd lost friends. Maria, a dancer, was caught in a raid and sent to prison. Tommy, a driver, was found floating in the Chicago River. Each loss carved a piece of me away, but I couldn't stop. The city was a chessboard, and I was determined to be the queen. The summer of 1925 was hot, the kind of heat that made the city feel like it was suffocating. My dress shop hummed with activity, but the air was heavy with something else. Doubt. Clara's warning about a traitor lingered in my mind, a splinter I couldn't pull out. I started watching my girls closer, listening for hesitations in their voices, searching for glances that didn't land right. Trust was a currency I could no longer afford to spend freely. One night, I caught Rosa, one of my newer recruits, slipping a note to a man in a fedora outside the shop. She was a quiet girl, barely 19, with eyes that always seemed to be hiding something. I cornered her in the back room, my derringer pressed against her ribs. "Who are you talking to, Rosa?" I asked, my voice low and sharp. Her eyes widened, but she didn't cry. "Nobody, Sofia. Just a friend." "Don't lie to me," I said, pressing the gun harder. "I built this from nothing. You think I won't burn it down to protect it?" She broke then, tears spilling as she confessed. She'd been feeding information to a North Side gang, hoping to buy her brother's freedom from their clutches. I wanted to hate her, but I saw my younger self in her desperation. I let her go, but not before making it clear. "You're out. If I see you again, you're dead." It was a lie. I couldn't kill her, but she didn't need to know that. The betrayal shook me, but it also sharpened my focus. I doubled down, tightening my grip on the South Side. We expanded our smuggling routes, using fishing boats to bring in liquor from Canada under the cover of dawn. I met with Luca more often, his warnings growing darker. "The feds are closing in, Sofia," he said one night, his breath warm against my cheek in a shadowed doorway. "They've got a new agent, some hotshot named Eliot Ness. He's not like the others, can't be bought." I laughed it off, but the name stuck. Eliot Ness, a man who could ruin everything. By fall, I'd grown bold, too bold, maybe. I'd been invited to a charity gala at the Drake Hotel, a chance to rub elbows with Chicago's elite. It was a perfect opportunity to secure a new ally. Alderman Patrick O'Malley, a corrupt politician who could keep the cops off our backs. I wore an emerald green gown, my hair swept into a chignon, and walked into the gala like I owned the place. Clara was at my side, dressed as a socialite, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd. O'Malley was easy to spot, a barrel-chested man with a laugh that boomed over the orchestra. I approached him with a glass of champagne, my smile practiced and disarming. "Alderman," I said, "I hear you're a man who gets things done." He grinned, his eyes lingering too long on my neckline. "And you're the sparrow, I presume. Word travels fast." Sir, we danced around the deal for an hour, trading pleasantries and veiled promises. By the end of the night, he'd agreed to redirect police patrols away from our speakeasies for a price, of course. As we sealed the deal with a handshake, I caught a glimpse of a man across the room. Tall, sharp-jawed, with eyes that seemed to see through the glitter and lies. Eliot Ness. He was watching me. I left the gala with a deal, but also a sinking feeling. Ness wasn't just a cop. He was a hunter, and I was his prey. Winter came, and with it, a storm. The feds raided 2 of our speakeasies, tipped off by someone inside. I suspected Capone's men, but I had no proof. My girls were on edge, and even Clara was starting to crack. "We're spread too thin, Sofia," she said one night, her voice raw. "We can't keep this up." I didn't want to hear it. I poured us both a drink and laid out a new plan. A heist to end all heists. Capone was moving a shipment of cash through Union Station, a fortune meant to bribe city officials. If we could steal it, we'd cripple his operation and fund our own for years. It was risky and sane, even. But I was desperate to prove I was still in control. We spent weeks planning. Clara recruited a team. Frankie, a safecracker with a limp. Anna, a driver who could outrun anyone. And Luca, who I convinced to join us. He was reluctant, his loyalty torn between me and his badge. "This is suicide, Sofia," he said, but he was there when we needed him. The night of the heist was cold, the air sharp with the promise of snow. We moved like ghosts through Union Station, our faces hidden under hats and scarves. Frankie cracked the safe in record time, and we were halfway out when the trap sprang. Capone's men were waiting, guns drawn, their grins feral. Someone had sold us out. The air in Union Station crackled with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle and your heart pound like a war drum. Capone's men stood in a semicircle, their Tommy guns glinting under the dim station lights. I clutched the satchel of cash, my mind racing for an escape. Clara was to my left, her hand hovering near the knife hidden in her coat. Frankie and Anna stood frozen, their faces pale, while Luca's hand rested on his holster, his cop instincts warring with his loyalty to me. "Hand it over, Sparrow," said the leader, a wiry man with a scar across his cheek. I recognized him. Tony the Blade Russo, one of Capone's most ruthless enforcers. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with malice. "You've been a thorn in our side too long." I forced a smile, stalling for time. "Tony, you know I don't play nice with ultimatums. How about we split the take and call it even?" He laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" Big mistake. Before I could respond, a shot rang out, not from Tony's men, but from behind us. One of Capone's goons dropped, clutching his shoulder. Chaos erupted. Luca had fired, giving us a split second to move. "Run," I shouted, diving behind a pillar as bullets tore through the air. Anna grabbed Frankie, pulling him toward an exit, while Clara and I returned fire, our pistols barking in the cavernous station. We made it to the platform, the satchel still in my grip. But Tony was relentless, his men fanning out like wolves. Luca stayed close, his face grim as he reloaded. "This was a setup, Sofia," he hissed. "Someone tipped them off." "Who?" I demanded. But there was no time for answers. We sprinted toward Anna's car, parked just outside. She gunned the engine as we piled in, bullets pinging off the chassis. The car roared into the night, weaving through Chicago's icy streets, but I knew we weren't safe. Not yet. We holed up in a safe house on the west side, a crumbling tenement that smelled of mildew and regret. The satchel lay on the table, its contents hundreds of thousands in cash, mocking us with its cost. Frankie was nursing a grazed arm, Anna was shaking, and Clara was pacing like a caged animal. Luca stood by the window, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning the street below. "We need to know who sold us out," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "This doesn't end until we do." Clara stopped pacing, her eyes meeting mine. "It wasn't one of the girls, Sofia. I'd stake my life on it." "Then who?" I pressed, but the answer was already forming in my mind, a cold nod of dread. "Luca. He was the only one who'd known every detail of the plan. The only one with a foot in both worlds, mine and the law's." I turned to him, my derringer in hand. "Luca, look at me." He turned slowly, his blue eyes unreadable. "What's this, Sofia?" "Tell me you didn't do it," I said, my voice trembling with rage and something else, grief. "Tell me you didn't sell us to Capone." His silence was deafening. Then, softly, he said, "I didn't have a choice." The room went still. Clara cursed under her breath, and Anna's hand flew to her mouth. Luca's face crumpled, not with guilt, but with resignation. "Ness has been on me for months," he said. "He knew about us, about you. He threatened to expose me, to ruin my family. I fed him just enough to keep him off your back, but Capone's men got to me first. They wanted the cash, Sofia. I didn't know they'd be waiting." I wanted to scream, to pull the trigger, but the weight of his words stopped me. Luca had been my anchor, the one person I'd let in. And now he'd torn my world apart. I didn't kill Luca. I couldn't. Instead, I sent him away, his badge and his gun left on the table like a confession. "If I see you again," I told him, "you're a dead man." He nodded, his eyes hollow, and disappeared into the night. But the damage was done. The heist had made us targets, and Capone wasn't the only one hunting us. Eliot Ness and his untouchables were closing in, their raids growing bolder. My empire was crumbling, and I was running out of moves. Clara and I burned the safe house and split the cash, sending Anna and Frankie to lay low in St. Louis. "We'll rebuild," Clara said, but her voice lacked conviction. I returned to the dress shop, the only place that still felt like mine. Vino, my cat, curled up on my lap as I sat in the dark, the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I'd wanted vengeance for my parents, but all I'd done was trade one cage for another. The city I'd ruled was turning on me, its streets whispering my name with fear and loathing. Then, one night, it all ended. I was locking up the shop when the door burst open, and there stood Tony Russo, his scar gleaming in the moonlight. Behind him was Eliot Ness, his face calm but resolute. "Sofia Marconi," Ness said, "you're under arrest." I didn't fight. I'd known this moment was coming. As they cuffed me, Tony leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear. "Capone sends his regards," he whispered. "You're done, Sparrow." The clink of the handcuffs echoed in my ears as they led me out of the dress shop, past the racks of silk and satin that had hidden my empire. The night was bitter, the Chicago wind slicing through my thin coat. Ness's men were thorough, their faces stone cold as they loaded me into a black sedan. Tony Russo lingered, his smirk a blade twisting in my gut. I'd always known Capone would have his revenge, but seeing it delivered by both the law and the underworld felt like a betrayal of the city itself. The jail cell was damp, the walls stained with despair. I sat on the cot, Vino's absence a quiet ache. Clara had vanished after the heist, and I prayed she'd made it out. The feds didn't waste time. By morning, Eliot Ness himself sat across from me in an interrogation room, his sharp eyes studying me like a puzzle he was determined to solve. "You're quite the legend, Miss Marconi," he said, his voice clipped but not unkind. "The sparrow who outsmarted Capone. But legends fall." I leaned back, my wrists still raw from the cuffs. "You think you've got me, Ness? You've got nothing but a name and a few crates of liquor." He smiled, a thin, knowing curve of his lips. "We've got witnesses. Your friend Luca Russo, for one. He's singing like a canary." My heart sank, but I kept my face blank. Luca. Of course he'd turned. "Then why am I here?" I asked. "Sounds like you've got all you need." Ness leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Because I don't want you, Sofia. I want Capone. Help me and you walk." It was a devil's bargain. Betray the outfit, the very world I'd built, or rot in prison. I thought of my girls, Clara, Anna, the others who'd risked everything for me. I thought of my parents, their blood on Capone's hands. And I thought of Luca, who'd broken my trust but maybe, just maybe, could still be my way out. "I'll think about it," I said, buying time. Ness nodded, as if he'd expected nothing less, and left me alone with my thoughts. Days bled into weeks in that cell. The feds kept me isolated, but whispers found their way through the cracks. Capone was furious, his empire shaken by the heist and Ness's raids. My name was a curse on his lips, but I was still alive. A fact that puzzled me until Clara showed up, disguised as a cleaning woman, slipping me a note during a cell sweep. "Sofia, we're not done." It read in her jagged scrawl. "The girls are with you. Stay sharp." I burned the note with a stolen match, my heart pounding. Clara was out there rallying the mob queens. But loyalty was a double-edged sword, and I couldn't shake the fear that another traitor was waiting in the wings. I spent sleepless nights replaying every move, every conversation, searching for the moment I'd gone wrong. Was it Rosa? Luca? Or had I been blind to someone closer? Ness came back, his offer unchanged. "Time's running out," he said. "Capone's men are closing in. They'll kill you before you ever see a courtroom." He wasn't wrong. I'd heard the guards talking about a hit planned on the jail. Capone's way of tying up loose ends. I made my choice, not for Ness, but for my girls. "I'll give you names," I said. "But I want protection for my people. And I want out." Ness agreed, but his eyes told me he didn't trust me any more than I trusted him. We were two predators circling the same prey, and neither of us would come out clean. The plan was simple but brutal. Ness would stage a transfer, moving me to a federal facility, but the route would leak to Capone's men. When they came for me, Ness's untouchables would be waiting, ready to catch them in the act. I was the bait, and if anything went wrong, I'd be the first to die. The night of the transfer, I was bundled into an armored truck, my hands cuffed but my mind sharp. The city lights blurred past, a reminder of the empire I'd lost. Then it happened. Tires screeched, gunfire erupted, and the truck lurched as Capone's men attacked. But Ness was ready. His men swarmed from the shadows, their guns blazing. I ducked low, my heart in my throat, as bullets tore through metal and glass. In the chaos, I saw her, Clara, slipping through the fight like a ghost. She wasn't with Ness's men or Capone's. She was with the mob queens, a handful of my girls armed to the teeth, their faces set with grim determination. They weren't here to save me. They were here to end it. Clara reached the truck, yanking open the door. "Move, Sofia," she shouted, tossing me a pistol. I didn't hesitate. We fought our way out, my girls cutting through Capone's men like a blade through silk. Ness's plan had worked, but not the way he'd expected. By the time the smoke cleared, Tony Russo lay dead, and Capone's operation was in tatters. But so was mine. I looked at Clara, her face streaked with blood and soot, and knew this was the end. "Go," I told her. "Take the girls and disappear." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "Not without you." "I'm already gone," I said, and I meant it. The sparrow was dead, her wings clipped by betrayal and ambition. I handed Clara the last of the cash from the heist and walked away, leaving Chicago behind.